So today's video is just gonna be a short one. I just really wanted to talk about like numerology, the importance of numerology, and finding your path, and staying on your path, and staying on track, because a lot of that stuff can get confusing. And I think it's a good indicator of knowing that you're balanced and that you're on the right path if you can acknowledge numerology and the significance behind it and some of like what some of those messages are. But at the same time, it can also get a little confusing and a little dangerous because you're sitting there trying to decipher shit all the time. So I just wanted to talk about that. Really, like, the method I use numerology for is really just trying to acknowledge it, because it can get kind of tricky sometimes. But what I do is I acknowledge what I'm thinking about at that moment, and then if it's something significant, and I look at the time, and it's it's like got those numbers like 6444, or sorry, 644, and 1111, 111, those numbers that mean something, like, or even just like synchronatic numbers that just pop up conveniently. There's no such thing as convenience, there's no such thing as coincidence, everything happens for a reason. So, like, this is where it gets tricky, because you have to acknowledge what you're thinking about. You have to, maybe sometimes it helps when you like write stuff down. I really try to not overthink things. I try to just, go with the flow too, because this is another thing where it kind of gets tricky, because you get kind of caught up trying to look for signs sometimes, and then you get overwhelmed or you're overthinking things, and that's not going to send you the right message, and it's going to confuse you more than it's going to actually put you back on track. So try to avoid overthinking things, and just, ask Spirit, ask the universe, ask God for clearance, some, some better understanding of what the messages they're trying to send you. Just so you don't, overthink something, or think something means one thing when it really means another. You know what I mean? So that can get a little complicated. So, like, don't just bank on numerology, right? We're not going to bank on numerology. But there are some really great, like, I have a good example of the universe recently telling me to get my shit together. Because I recently, I don't know, I think I haven't really been too personal with stuff, but I'm going through a divorce right now. And there was birds involved too that kind of told me that you need to get your wings, you need to branch out and fly away and go get your freedom. But there was other things too, like there was these, like, I would think about it and think about it and think about it, like, I don't think this is the right thing for me, what I'm doing with my life doesn't really feel right. And then I would look at the clock and it would be like 1:44, 1:22, or something like that. And you just, it's kind of like it's not necessarily, a guarantee that what you're assuming or what you're thinking on a situation is correct, but it's a good indicator that, what you're thinking about is significant, and there's probably some ulterior stuff to it that you should think about and dwell on, or not necessarily dwell on, but self-reflect on. So my biggest advice is using numerology to acknowledge what you're thinking about and the patterns that you're kind of developing for your, not necessarily developing, the patterns of what you're thinking about are. So, like, for example, I had this crazy day where recently I met this couple. They're like super their path is super familiar. I mean, it's super aligned with what my path is. We had a lot in common, and numerology was super high that day. So, like, I was told that day to look for like butterflies as a good indicator of what the message was that I was going to be receiving. And so I did. I saw a lot of butterflies. We went to Sonic, and there was a little butterfly pin on the lady that brought our order out. She had a big old butterfly right there in her mask, so there was that. And they were listening to a radio station. They were listening to the AM radio, and I think it was like 750 or 745 or something like that. I don't know. But it meant family is all that matters, which was crazy too, because I was literally hanging out with them, and they are a family. They were a really great family. And they were kind of inspiring, and they were kind of like, I guess maybe a way to tell me that, hey, you should probably get your shit together. You know, this could be you having a life of your own and a family of your own. But you're still out here with your feelings all around. I don't know. I'm still dwelling on that one. The message behind it. But there was definitely some significance behind that day, like the numerology, and then there was other things that were involved too, like they were carving hearts on the trees and stuff, and there's all like aspen trees, which are spiritual trees too. There's a lot of other things that were involved that day, so that's why it's a really good example that I have for numerology, because it wasn't just numerology involved that day, there was other indicators of the message. So it kind of helped, like, you know, hammer that message in so I understood it better. So that's what I mean by not just taking numerology as, like, your message and what you're supposed to be doing. Like, you want to take it as, like, confirmation of, you know, that you're on the right path more than anything. That's the way I look at it. There's other ways to use numerology, too. There's more in depth, but it's really with what resonates with you. So that's like why I talk about, like, it's a confirmation, because it's what's resonating with you. So like if it has something to do with what you're thinking about at the moment, something that's going on in your life as far as events going on, and it has that, you know, matches up with the numerology, that's what I'm talking about. That's like an indicator that you're either on the right path, or this is some type of esoteric message for you. Pay attention. But there's other stuff like that, you know, so it's not just, you don't want to just bank off numerology. So that's just my advice for you. But oh, and then I'll show you some pictures of that stuff too, because there was other things. There was like these two clouds that fell. It was like a man and a woman falling from heaven, which was a good indicator for me. And then there was like this cloud, this baby cloud too. So I don't know, I guess that day was just trying to tell me, hey, get your shit together, let's have a family one day. I don't know, maybe it's my divine self that was trying to send me a message too, because that's the other thing too, is like, is it your divine self trying to send you a message, or is the universe trying to tell you, you know, some advice about, you know, lining yourself up or where you could be? There's other things involved that you have to think about. It's really gonna boil down to the individual that you are and the situation that you're going through, you know what I mean? You can't just be like, oh yeah, this numerology means this, so this is definitely where I'm supposed to be, this is definitely my path. No, it doesn't work that way necessarily. There's gotta be some patterns involved. Anyway, it's getting a little dark. I just kind of wanted to briefly talk about numerology because I've been vague with you guys lately. If you guys have any specific questions on like how to use numerology, I'm gonna put together some workshops on Patreon on how to do this stuff specifically, with steps and, you know, tutorials, like a little DIY type of thing, do it yourself type of project. So I'll have steps and things where I go into more depth there. And that, I'll make it as cheap as like $1, really, just for like some advice and some step tutorials. There's other stuff that I want to eventually add to my Patreon too. I'll update you guys now, since I'm talking about stuff right now. I was actually thinking about updating my Patreon because I'm going to do some more artwork, some digital artwork with vinyl. I'm probably going to try to work on some t-shirt press stuff and maybe perhaps work on like some resin or figurines, something like that. But I want to put together subscription boxes with artsy stuff, spellcraft stuff, like do-it-yourself spells, like with little like instructions and packets and stuff and steps and tools on how to cast certain spells for affirmations. So I'm thinking about doing stuff like that, so I'll keep you guys posted on Patreon and on my website too, because that's where I'm updating a lot of this stuff. If you really want some better information, a lot of my followers are getting updates on my website. So the link is in the description below if you want to check out the website. Just add yourself to that. There's announcements all the time there. And that's where I'm going to announce all the Patreon stuff, the subscriber stuff, and how to get involved with all the artsy, craftsy stuff. And then also talk about psychic art and go into more depth on things and explaining things for you guys there. So that will all be through Patreon. That's it. You guys have a good one. Peace.